Yeah, and it's a pleasure actually to interview Samudraghosha. I live with Samudraghosha and have done for a good number of years. But there's something about interviewing someone, isn't there, that where you sort of you pursue a line of inquiry with someone, and kind of get to know them afresh. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah, very much enjoy living and a friendship with Samudra Ghosha. Yeah, someone who's I'd say, very, very dedicated actually to communicating Dharma. Very happy to be helping at Sangha Night and other places. But I won't say any more because I'd like to start asking him questions. So Samudraghosha, welcome. Very good to have you here. Do unmute just in case. Yeah. So would you tell us? Would you sort of
Can I ask you a quick question first?
Oh, go on. Yeah.
Is the interview for roughly?
Sorry, say again.
How long have we got roughly?
We've got 20 minutes from quarter past. Yeah. So can we wind the clock back to before you were a Buddhist, and would you just share with us the sort of the immediate events kind of leading up to you getting involved in Triratna with Buddhism?
Gosh, yes. Well, in a way, the immediate events are not that interesting. Well, I won't tell you very much about me or about the Dharma. Yeah, the context was, so I was, well, basically at the age of 24, I moved from my home area in Berkshire to Southampton. And I started a job there, a research job at the university there. And I wasn't looking for anything. Not, that is, on a conscious level. I wasn't looking for anything. But one of my friend's colleagues, well, he was involved with what at the time was a very small Triratna group in Southampton that had been running for a few years, set up by Lalita Ratna, who's now in Berlin. And yeah, he was involved with that. And a group of us would go out on a Friday night, and everyone else would drink, and I wouldn't, because I've never been into it. So I would sit there sober, and they drink, and he'd start talking about the Dharma and the meditations. Like, wow. And yeah, as I say, I wasn't looking for anything. But I think, well, basically, over a period of, I don't remember how long, a few months, I got more and more interested in what he would talk about. And then I decided to start going along to a group that was being held at the university by Lalita Ratna. Initially, what I went to was actually some sort of little talks and discussions about Buddhism. That was what I was fired up by. It was only about 6 months later that actually Claire, who's with us tonight, who was in Southampton at the time, said to me, "Why don't you try meditation?" Thank you very much, Claire. Yes, why not actually try the practical side of things rather than just getting excited by the ideas? But yes, initially it was the vision of Buddhism that attracted me. Am I preempting a future question here, Arthasiddhi? Do you want to rein me in?
No. That might be an interesting place to go. I mean, it's also just interesting what you've said. You know that not only were you not looking for Buddhism, you were also in a pub. And that's what you discovered. So it's
not
pretty
what I
unlikely.
expected to discover. Not what I expected to discover.
Yeah. Yeah, but what do you mean by vision, the vision of Buddhism?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't remember that clearly, the different things that I encountered early on. I do remember being, what I can't remember quite my response, but I remember encountering Buddhist ethics early on, as you do, don't you? Because it's so important, so fundamental, and just, oh wow, this makes sense. Just delighted by this. Seemed like a very sound system of ethics, but in terms of vision, well, I think actually it was the Bodhisattva ideal. I came across that really early on. It might even have been the first session or two. And yeah, again, I can't clearly remember my response, but I do know I was really inspired by the Bodhisattva ideal from very early on in my involvement. Just the notion of living a life for something so much bigger than oneself. And yeah, whilst yeah, that's always been there for me in one shape or form. Both the Bodhisattva ideal particularly, and perhaps in a way more broadly, in a way not. Yeah, living for something bigger than oneself. I think that's what most deeply inspires me about the Dharma life, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Escape from the tyranny of self. I can't remember who coined that phrase. But
right.
This, yeah.
Yeah, so the Bodhisattva ideal being the altruistic articulation of the...
yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, not everyone would be aware of that. Yeah, so really practicing the spiritual life, not just for one's own sake, but in order to help everyone, help liberate all, well, not just human beings, all beings. It's really nice ideal.
And you say in some ways that was a sort of liberation. It sort of it liberated you. What did it liberate you from? You said the
well, I don't know whether that in itself liberated me, but I guess I picked up on a potential for liberation in that. And yeah, I got very excited by it. I don't think I was that aware of being particularly unhappy or anything, though actually I think deeper down I probably was, but it wasn't that sort of obvious. But gosh, it's a much more bigger, richer, more meaningful way to live one's life. So I've always been more of a carrot person than a stick person.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, my motivation for practicing the Dharma. Not sure if I've answered your question, so re-ask it.
No, I think you have. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Yeah, so you were not particularly looking for something, but you stumbled across something which was really, really appealing.
I think in a way I was an idealist without an ideal.
Right.
Someone who really wanted a spiritual life, but didn't know that I wanted one, and hadn't managed to realize that there was a difference between conventional religion and spiritual life. Didn't mean some massive leap of faith, as it were.
Yeah. So what was that like? What effect did it have on you to discover something that you didn't even know you were looking for?
Well, I think I was just very excited. That's what I remember. I just really wanted to go to these sessions and talking to all my friends about it, and yeah, then them getting a bit sort of well, I think all sorts of different responses to that. But yeah, it's really exciting. And then, of course, I encountered warmth. I mean, Lalitha Ratner is a very expressive, warm, friendly man. You know, the order member who was leading activities there at the time. And then I gradually realized, oh gosh, that's something I really want as well. Yeah. So Sangha came in gradually. Yeah.
So again, something perhaps you didn't realize you were looking for, but when you saw it, you knew you wanted it.
I think that's right, and I think it's been an ongoing process that for me, Arthasiddhi. You know very well from many discussions in the chapter and so on, but yeah, just slowly learning over the course of about 44 years, just the value of connection, human connection, friendship. And I don't think I really had friends in a superficial sense, but I think I really had meaningful connections with other people at that age. And I found it in the Sangha. It took me a few years to really find it in a two-way sense, yeah, it's been an ongoing process of learning how to really open up to give myself to others, even just in a basic sense of friendship.
Great. That's correct. Let's skip forward a few years to when you got ordained. You got ordained in 2005, was that? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there might be similar. There might be the threads that you've been talking about will continue. But yeah, ordination. What difference has that made in your life?
Gosh. Well, I suppose I could answer the question in a relatively literal way, which is that it gives me a richer context for engaging with my spiritual life and more opportunities to express my desire to give in a way that's spiritually meaningful. I really value, although sometimes I find it very challenging, I really value the opportunity to share the Dharma. That's just really, really important to me. But also, yeah, just taking that question, what difference has ordination made? Well, in the same time, I can't separate out getting ordained, so to speak, joining the order. I can't separate that out from an ongoing deepening process of giving myself more to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And that's what's really significant. Yeah, I feel quite moved just saying that, even though it seems quite obvious. But
yeah. So it's impossible to separate it out from the process of you developing as a human being towards in the direction of Buddhahood with the Dharma in there.
That's certainly the case for me, as I imagine it is for most, if not all, order members. Maybe others may feel a little differently, but yeah. I couldn't have not done that without, I think, throwing the whole thing out the window, which I wasn't going to do.
Yeah. So in a way, you're saying being an order member is not centrally about particular activities.
No.
It's no.
And for me, this, yes, of course, it's helpful just as a signal to people in contexts like this. I'm an order member, but it's much more than that. It's a symbol of something, actually. And it's white, and for me, white evokes Vajrasattva, which is a bodhisattva figure who I have a personal deep connection with, and I connect him with freedom. So for me, the Kesa is connected with freedom, actually, liberation of mind. Very much work in progress, but yeah, very central for me.
So maybe moving on from there, here's another question. I wonder how you'll respond to this. But have you changed?
Sometimes I believe that I haven't. Not up here. Up here, it's pretty clear that sometimes there's a bit of me that sort of at times I can fall back into old habits and sort of think, oh, it's all the same. It's sort of, but I know if I just step back from that a bit, or if I speak to my friends, very much including yourself, Arthasiddhi, I get the message, no, you changed. I think, well, oh yeah, of course I have. And yeah, a large part of that has been, I mean, I could talk a long time about this. A large part of that has been learning to free myself, it comes back to freedom again, from all kinds of attitudes to myself, which are just really unhelpful, painful, and limiting. That's ongoing work, and it probably will be for a long time. But my goodness, just self-awareness and kindness, metta towards oneself, absolutely priceless. And you can't practice the bodhisattva ideal without that. Yeah.
So there've been these subtle, tremendously important changes in attitude. But what would you imagine the Samudraghosha, you weren't called Samudraghosha then, who came along, would see in you at the moment that wasn't there before?
Oh, that's a very good question. That would be a very good question, even if we weren't in the Sangha night. well, and this is a good lesson for me because I still doubt this very much at times. I think he'd see confidence. I think you see someone who's able to express himself, not always, but at times, much more fully than he's familiar with. And who much of the time seems happier. Yeah, yeah. And less caught up solely in the rational mind. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's linked to your name, isn't it? Samudra.
Well said, Arthasiddhi. Yeah, yeah. Samudra is the ocean, which my name as it was given to me is he who communicates from the depths. And yeah, gulp. Because I don't always do that by any means. But yeah. And still work in progress, but heading in the right direction.
Great. Well, just lastly, last year it was really quite a challenging year for you, wasn't it? You know, you lost your father. You'd had a serious health scare. We weren't sure whether you were going to live. So you've been through a kind of tremendous year last year. So what I was wondering was what sort of got you through that, and was that the same old things that always get you through, or was there something new that sort of sustained you, new that you discovered in that process?
Was there something new? I'm not sure if there was something new, but maybe I got better at doing things that I'd already had some experience of because I had to. I mean, I think, yeah, what sustained me was, well, first and foremost, Sangha and friendship. Yeah. Secondly, having some space to actually engage with what was going on. And thirdly, my own practice, my connection with Vajrasattva, the Bodhisattva figure I've already mentioned, and my practice of metta, particularly the first stage, and my self-awareness that I've developed over the years, being able to turn towards the dukkha, actually, turning towards the dukkha that I was experiencing, and having enough, being able to hold that in a bigger and more kindly awareness, that was key. And I've done that without a long-term supportive context, and the supportive context right there and then. Yeah, I've done that without friends.
So there's something about the sort of years of practice that somehow make a difference. You're talking about your practice, being able to rely on your practice. Having done that for years and years and years, you could call on that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily mean specifically sort of like the mindfulness of breathing and the metta bhavana. In fact, I could hardly meditate for, I don't know what. I could hardly meditate a little over a year ago. But nevertheless, the meditation I had done, and more importantly, perhaps the more general work of just bringing attention to myself, learning who I am, bringing kindness to that, and learning that I'm not alone, the support of those around me. That, I think, was a key part of what got me through without just totally collapsing, as it were. Yeah. I collapsed physically, but not at a deeper level.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Samudraghosha, for sharing yourself so fully in this interview. It's very, very good to have you on the team for Sangha Night, and a pleasure to sort of to welcome you in officially by sort of interviewing you and us hearing about your Dharma life.
Thank you, Arthasiddhi, and thank you all for listening.
So now we're going to move on. I'd like to invite Saddharaja up. Now, Saddharaja has been ordained for a long time. I think perhaps it's 1990, something like that he was ordained. I'm sure he'll confirm shortly. He's also, I'll just mention that he's very generously, he's an artist, and he has very generously contributed a depiction of the Wheel of Life, which you can access. It's there on the Cambridge Buddha Centre website. And he's given that to the centre as a fundraiser. So he's just given it kind of freely. And if you would like one, he's got a lovely, really very fine sort of almost sort of icon-like sort of very engaging kind of style. So yeah, if you're interested in the Wheel of Life, go onto the website and you'll find Saddharaja's there, and he's doing that by donation. So you could give a donation to the centre. Anyway, another example of Saddharaja's generosity. But yeah, I'm very pleased we've got Saddharaja here with us on the team, a Dharma practitioner of many years' experience. He led my my Mitra study group back in Windhorse for 3 years, as he's led many study groups over the years, and had a very rich and full kind of Dharma life. So Saddharaja, could I start by asking you the same question, actually? What were the sort of immediate events that led to your getting involved? I know you had been a Buddhist, you have been a Buddhist, realised you were a Buddhist at the age of 14, but what about the events, the sequence of events that led to you getting involved with this community in Triratna?
Well, can you all hear me? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got involved when I was 14 in Buddhism. And I think if I'd encountered Buddhism before 14, say at the age of 7 or 8, I'd have got involved then, actually, because I just knew it was what I wanted to do with my life. And my mother at the time told a neighbour that it was a passing phase. Well, I'm 61 now, so I think that's a really long phase, actually. I was involved in Tibetan groups and Zen groups for about 10 years, and they were good. There were so many good things going on there. You know, from the age of 14 to 24, I explored all that, and but something was a bit missing. I was looking for I was open to another Sangha. I didn't feel I'd found the right Sangha. I was shopping around, as we used to say. But 1983, I went on an open day to Padmaloka and drove up, and I was looking for an Indian guru person called Sangha, and but there wasn't anyone who was Indian there at all. And I realised I had a very good day on the open day, but I realised that a casual conversation I'd had with an old gentleman wearing carpet slippers was actually Sangha. And what really impressed me about it was he didn't bother to tell me who he was. He just had a really decent human conversation with me. And whereas all the other forms of Buddhism that I'd encountered before that, it was always very clear who the teacher was. They made quite a big song and dance about it. So I was really impressed with that and what we talked about. So I got involved very quickly. But I lived in Ipswich at the time and had a young family, and there wasn't any Dharma groups in my area. So I had to travel for years. I travelled every week to Norwich, and I used to cycle to Padmaloka to do Mitra study. And then I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, cycle back to Norwich station and get a train to work. And yeah, I did it all again the next week. It was very different back in those days. It was the Wild West, you know, but it's so good now. I could never have imagined that I would be talking to a computer with 60 odd people in front of me back in those days. I just could not have imagined it. It was so different. But it was good. But I knew on that open day that this was it. I'd found the community I was looking for, and I would stay with that for the rest of my life, and I have. Yeah.
Great, gosh. So you've had these very immediate kind of.
It was immediate, yeah.
Experiences back when you were 14, knowing that it was Buddhism, then encountering Triratna, knowing it's Triratna. And have you been able to sort of qualify that? What was it? What was it about Triratna that spoke to you?
It was very straightforward. There wasn't any jargon. It was real. It was in the language people were ordinary people. They weren't dressed up in particular ethnic costumes or anything like that. They were just themselves, but they were deeply connected with the Dharma. They were doing ordinary jobs, but they took the Dharma very seriously in meditation. And that's what I wanted to do. That's how I was. I could relate to these people immediately. And it was very, very friendly, in the best kind of way. People were very open about their lives and their struggles with the Dharma. And I thought, this is where I belong. Also, I could see that it was the kind of Sangha where I could contribute. I wasn't just someone that was sort of spoon-fed the Dharma, just sit there and it's all dished out to me by the professional. It was something that I could get involved in and do things. And of course, I've done that for the last 37, 38 years or something I've been involved. And that's a very, very important part of it for me, that I can be involved and contributing in relation to others.
Great. Thanks very much. Very, very interesting. Okay, let's skip on in time to your ordination. So what was that like for you, Saddharaja, getting ordained? What was the experience like?
It was a sort of mixture of heaven and hell, really. It was wonderful in that it was one of the happiest times of my life, going to Spain to get a new name, to fully commit myself to the Western Buddhist order as it was named at the time. It's now called Triratna Buddhist order. I really, really deeply wanted to do that more than anything else, and it happened. But I had 8-year-old son at the time, and he's 38 now. But at the time, he really didn't want me to go, and I didn't want to be parted from him. So there's quite a bit of pain there, actually, in relation to that. But that soon got forgotten when I got back. But I think that was the painful bit, really. Also, it was a long retreat for months in a secret valley, and you come up against yourself. I wrote a very detailed diary of everything that went on that course for 4 months, the longest I've ever written a diary for. And I didn't look at that diary for 20 years after I was ordained. And then about 10 years ago, I dug this diary out, and I found it unreadable. I burned it, actually. In the end, I burned it because it was so embarrassing. And I just found myself saying, come on, mate, sort yourself out. Kind of, what's the matter with you? I realized I've really changed. I've really changed in the Dharma. And I read through this diary, it was painful. It just seemed so neurotic. And, the Dharma has changed me. And it's great in a way, it was really useful reading it, but I didn't want to keep it in case somebody else got hold of it. But it was, you face yourself on a retreat like that. But I also made some really wonderful friends. People like Sangha K2, who's here tonight. He was on that course. And, I've got a great connection with all the people that were on that course that I'll have till the day I die, I'm sure.
Great. Thank you. So once you got ordained, you've in the spirit of what attracted you to Triratna, you have been very active, haven't you? You've also, I think it'd be fair to say, you sort of refashioned yourself through your life. You were very involved in the Ipswich and also Colchester centres, weren't you? You were the Mitra convener over there, and then you came over to Windhorse, the big business, and you were Mitra convener there, and then you refashioned yourself as sort of a welfare officer.
That's right, yeah.
You set aside the Mitra convener for a period. And then when Windhorse closed down, resourceful as ever, you turned yourself into a sort of mental health worker specialist, very, very engaged and active and appreciated in that work. And more recently, you've moved away from that, and you have got a passion really for activities in Calcutta, starting activities in Calcutta. So extraordinarily sort of rich, very, very engaged in this sort of this sort of shifting, sort of refashioning yourselves. And I wanted to ask you about the continuity. So, relatively different sort of activities, but what are the sort of, what's the continuity? What's the sort of, what is there in all this that's sort of central meaning in your life that's expressed through these different activities and projects?
I think the continuity is a motto. I've got a Buddhist motto which I've been living by, for 30 odd years, I think. And that motto is, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. And what I mean by that is, throughout my life, I see something and I think, wow, that looks really interesting. I'd like to get involved in that. And I just plunge in and I just have a go. I'm usually not very good when I start doing that. But then I get better through doing it. And so, yeah, I started a centre, 30 odd years ago, which is now the Ipswich Buddhist Centre. I'm starting a Buddhist centre in Calcutta, India. I've been working in India for 17 years, but, a couple of years ago, I thought, it would be really good to start a centre in a city with 18 million people. Let's have a go. So I've just plunged in. I'm doing that at the moment. And I'm not that good at it, but I'm getting better as that progresses. It's the same with everything that I did working at Windhorse. I've come to accept now that this is my process. I have tried to attend proper training courses. I will go on the Seeker course and all this kind of stuff, but it's not really how I do things. I plunge in and then get better. I learn on the job, as it were. But it's all based on interest and inspiration and enthusiasm. I get inspired by things and I think, I want to do that. I'm currently very inspired by the journey of Xuanzang. Xuanzang was a 7th century Chinese scholar monk who walked thousands of miles across China to visit India and collect teachings. And he just decided to have a go one day, and 17 years later, he kind of returned to China. And I feel a little bit like that, really. I just have a go, plunge in, but I have to change through the process, and engaging in all those Dharma platforms changes me in some way. Yeah, more recently it was working in mental health, but I've retired now, and my new thing is Buddhist art and painting. I'm doing a lot of that, but I'm just having a go. I'm plunging in, and that's my style. I've accepted that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and plunging, you certainly do. It's been a thoroughly kind of passionate sort of plunging in, hasn't it? I witnessed that from a distance. But
I've made some pretty awful mistakes at times, but I'm very good at backing up and kind of having another go and improving it. But I do make some mistakes occasionally. Yeah.
What's been your most instructive mistake? Would you say? What have you learned the most from?
I think I once accepted an invitation to speak at a Buddhist political rally in Mumbai, India, and I should not have done that. And that, I got away with the skin of my teeth, but I could have ended up just getting into dark waters. Anything political in India is dangerous, and that I was very, very lucky there, actually, with that one. Yeah.
And you mentioned your long-standing artistic interest.
Yeah.
So how is that relate to being a Buddhist? It's not a traditional sort of aspect of Buddhism, is it? How is that a practice for you?
I think it is, actually, because there is Buddhist art around, and there are images and sculpture as part of the Buddhist world, the Buddhist landscape. And they're a particular way of entering into the transcendental. You see a picture and it fascinates us, and different things fascinate different people. They're a portal, they're a way in. I think for me, it's the doing, it's the actual drawing and the reflecting on what I'm painting and drawing. So at the moment, recently, Deanne, hello Deanne, she's commissioned me to paint her a Vajrapani, which is a particular bodhisattva. And I'm going to do that for Deanne. I take commissions, and I've got a fairly clear idea in my mind of how I'm going to go about it, but I know that will change in the doing of it. Something fascinating and interesting will come up in the process. So, after the class, go and have a look on the website of my recent Wheel of Life. It's completely different from what I originally had in my mind. It developed its own life of its own. And the Dharma communicated itself through me. I understood things in the process of doing that. I think, so to give you a good example of that, that Wheel of Life is in black and white. So you can print it out and you can colour it in if you want to. And I can pretty much guarantee if you get your little pencils out and your felt tips and start to colour it in, you'll have a kind of direct experience of something. You'll get more involved in the images, and that'll become quite immediate for you. So I'm a hands-on kind of guy, and I'm getting hands-on with images, and Buddhist images in particular. And I can be there for hours and days and weeks and months. I'm so connected with it. So the lockdown isn't a problem for me, because I'm very engaged in artwork at the moment, and I do go for a ride on my bike every day.
Great. I'm struck by in your Dharma activities and your artistic activities that you don't make a distinction, a complete distinction between. You've got this approach of kind of throwing yourself in and seeing what happens. And I just sort of, again, similar to Samudraghosha, reflecting on your name, Saddharaja, the king of faith, or this kind of very pragmatic confidence to get started, to throw yourself in with the spiritual life. And that seems eminently true with you, that you've got this sort of, I'll get started and something will come of it, which is utterly the Dharma, isn't it? That you need to do it, you need to practice it. You need to practice it,
that's right. And I will continue to do that, I think, for as long as I'm able, as long as I'm alive. It's working for me. It's not to say I don't value theory and study, because I do deeply, and I love the conceptual side of the Dharma, and my views have strongly changed over the years about how I see life. But yes, I am hands-on. I want to get involved, and that's how I learn and understand things. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Saddharaja. Very great pleasure to interview you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a first for me. I've never been interviewed online before, so
first for me too.
There's even a YouTube video of me on at the moment. I had one of those, so that's another first. I just sort of plunged in. Anyway, see what you think of it.
Thanks very much again.
All right. Yeah.